Well, others will join as they're able, so we might as well get started. Did we pause the recording? Are we good, Brooke?
From what I can see, we're still recording.
Excellent. All right. My name is Amy Lukes. I'm the director of the AOT implementation team. Welcome to all of you, especially those of you who are new to these chats. This is the AOT Clinicians Web Chat, and we hold this approximately every 4 months. And it's a chance for us to learn from each other and uh, build community. And because that is part of our goal is to build community, if you have a camera and able to use it, we appreciate you turning it on. And look, Sarah's all fixed up. She's got a camera now. But before we get started, I want to introduce our team because some of you may notice that we've grown and we have some new faces. So, Brooke, you want to go first? You're not an old face, but you're a familiar face. Let's go with that.
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. My name is Brooke Gentry. I'm the AOT implementation coordinator as part of TAC's AOT implementation team. And um, I'm based in Atlanta. I've been with TAC for about 2 years, and a lot of my role involves managing our resources, which this chat is one of.
Thank you. Um, Shanti, as the other senior member.
That's funny. Hi guys, I'm Shanti. I'm the AOT Research and Evaluation Specialist on the team. I started around the same time that Brooke did, and I'm based in Western New York.
Jared.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jared Wyma Bradley. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm the senior AOT advisor. I don't feel very senior though, since I've only been here about a month. So good to be with you all.
And our newest addition, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I am in Cincinnati, Ohio. And my role is Senior AOT Legal Advisor, and I have only been here for just a few weeks, but I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, we're well, we, the royal we. I'm really excited to have this team. We're transitioning from losing Betsy, and we've added some new skills. I don't remember you saying whether you were an attorney or not, Sarah, but Sarah's an attorney, and that's something we haven't had on the team since Brian left 2 years ago. So we're very excited about this current configuration of the team. So now it's time for you all to introduce yourselves. Daryl?
Hi, I'm Daryl Hobson. I'm the AOT liaison for Porter Stark Services, which is a community mental health clinic up in Northwest Indiana. So I help organize I'm sort of the liaison between the courts and our clients. I do all the scheduling and make sure it runs smoothly when we have our sessions.
And your program's been up and running for
Since January 31st of 2023.
excellent, excellent. Danny?
I'm a clinician here at Turning Point in Northern California and Nevada County, and we have a AOT program here in Nevada County.
For a long, long time.
Yes, first in California, as I understand. I've been here for uh, just a couple days over a year now, and have had a great experience with our AOT program so far.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Heather Benton.
Hello, I am the Adult Community Services Supervisor. Our AOT team is under that program here in Riley County.
Kansas.
Yeah, sorry.
Heather Vance.
I am also with Turning Point in Nevada County. I'm the program director here, and I do all the AOT clinician part of the work and training Danny to be able to support. Yeah, and we have the first AOT program in California. We've been up and running for a little over 16 years.
Amazing, amazing. I'm glad you're here. You always add so much to these conversations. Edwin.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a social services practitioner with the Public Defender's Office here in Riverside, California. And my role is more or less case management with our clients.
Excellent, excellent. Monica.
Good afternoon. My name is Monica Podleshna. I'm also a social services practitioner with Public Defender's Office. And like Edwin, our job is to case manage and link to services and those kind of things.
And are you also in Riverside?
Yes, sorry, Riverside County, yes.
And are you in the criminal side, or do you do civil actions as well?
So we work with Care Court, which is it's kind of a civil. That does trigger civil cases, but we also do what we call alternative sentencing, which deals with the criminal aspect as well.
You do both. Got it.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Lorena. Lorena, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Yeah, you're not muted.
She may be having issues, but she's also a social services practitioner here with us in our Riverside Public Defender's Office.
Got it. Great. Well, welcome. California represented here. That's awesome. Does anybody have any clinical issues that they want to talk about? If not, I have a topic I want to talk about. Oh, good to see you, Monica. All right. One thing that is we were talking about consequences of non-adherence in AOT, and one of those things is a pickup order. Does everybody know what a pickup order is before everybody? Okay. So I am a former case manager back from the old days, and I worked in an AOT program, and I participated in a number of pickup orders, and I thought they were traumatic for me. So I can only imagine how traumatic they were for the person experiencing them. So I am just curious on how you all handle pickup orders, and if we can maybe brainstorm a way to reduce the trauma involved in those. And Daryl, and we started this conversation in a call that we had with Porter Stark on Friday. Do you want to share?
Sure. As part of my job at Porter Stark, I also do the state hospital placement with our clients who need that type of long-term care. And so the issue came up a couple of weeks ago with one of our clients who was inpatient, getting ready to be transported to the state hospital, which needs to be done by the local sheriff deputy. And I guess it's up to the deputy's discretion whether or not they use handcuffs or not. But every single one of them tends to put the client in as soon as they walk into the inpatient unit, immediately handcuff the client, put them in the back of the uh, vehicle and transport them with handcuffs on for the entire, sometimes 4 or 5 hour drive, which can be a traumatic experience. And her mother was expressing concerns for her daughter's mental well-being because it would really traumatize her. And I explained to her it's not up to me, it's up to probably the sheriff or the sheriff's deputy. And I reached out to the local sheriff's office and they said, well, it's up to the individual deputy if they want to use handcuffs or not. But I think I've never seen them not transport anyone without those handcuffs. And also, when we have a client who comes into our inpatient unit from the local hospital, because they're always transported from the ER, which is about a 3 or 4 mile drive, to our inpatient unit, also in handcuffs. So they're transported out of the ER like a criminal through the ER with all the people waiting into the back of a sheriff's police car, and then transported here again in handcuffs all the way into our inpatient unit. And so that's just been an issue of mine lately, and I discussed it with TAC last Friday and what could be done about it. And Amy was nice enough to share a form that they use, possibly we might incorporate into our pickup orders, which I call them transport orders, basically, that might add more information to the sheriff, maybe some background, a little bit more background on the clients, maybe a history of violence, or something that they might be able to use as a discretionary measure if they want to use handcuffs or not. So, and this was also discussed. We had an AOT session this last Monday with our judge, and we brought up that issue, and he was very willing to help open a dialogue with the local sheriff's department, local sheriff, to discuss that issue and see if that could be changed to be more of a, maybe not use handcuffs every single time, more of a discretion of that deputy, but maybe pursuing, maybe not using them as quite so often. But and now we have a meeting. We're going to have a meeting tomorrow with our inpatient unit to bring it up again to see what they get, more input before we approach the topic a little bit in more detail. Because I think it's a really traumatic experience for these clients to be put in handcuffs when they're transported, just treated like something they've done wrong when they're technically they haven't.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yeah.
So I want to hear from you all. How do those of you who have experienced this, how do you handle this? What is your system? And how can we impact this? How can we reduce the trauma of this unfortunately necessary intervention?
Yeah.
I know in our community, and we're a rural, fairly small community, but it's taken years of work on relationship building with our community partners, including our law enforcement agencies, to create those connections with the agencies and trust and, mutual respect and those kinds of things. So I feel like a lot of that kind of relationship building as well as education for law enforcement, particularly around mental illness, has benefited our community so that we see less of that happening. We see more empathy from the officers. We see more of them working to not have to handcuff people. I mean, and that's a lengthy process, and officers overturn all the time, as we know. But just doing that consistently over time and just continuing the education and continuing the relationship building has benefited our community in that aspect.
Yeah, I can understand, because sometimes we have a client that is not compliant with their medications or whatever, and the police have to actually go physically to their home or something. I can understand maybe we don't know exactly what the situation is at home. Maybe they have weapons. Maybe they're not quite they're having delusional thoughts because they haven't had their medications for 4 or 5 days. I can understand their concerns where they might possibly want to use handcuffs at that point because they're going out into the community. But they're taking these clients from a secure environment, a hospital setting where they know they don't have any weapons and they're calm to begin with, and then they agitate them more. Well, to handcuff them, they make them almost want to agitate them here to cause more trauma to them before they get to another treatment facility,
Feels very
which
stigmatizing.
it does. And I just wonder what else other organizations do, but to like you were saying, we have a good relationship with our sheriff's department, but I can't control them. I can't dictate what they do. I can put it in the order.
It is stigmatizing, and I remember I worked for a large organization that served, I don't know, 4,000 people. And so we had a large waiting room. We had 9 psychiatrists at any one time. And those who were being what we called pink slipped, which is emergency order of detention. The police would come and they'd walk them through the waiting room in handcuffs, and that their friends could be out there. Any number of people could be out there. We did finally work to a place where we arranged for a back door, and the ambulance or police, whoever was going to be transporting, would park around the side of the building. But still, somebody in psychiatric crisis being handcuffed when they've never been handcuffed before and have learned that handcuffs are for criminals. Heather, I'm curious what Heather Benton, what y'all do in Kansas?
For pickup orders?
Yeah.
We have not really used them much yet in our AOT program. We haven't had to do that too much.
But even outside of AOT, do you use them in your facility, or?
I don't have experience doing that with ACS. We do have our co-responder to help facilitate some of those situations, and we are coming up and board with our mobile crisis to help as well. But no, I don't have a lot of experience with those in our program.
We've had pickup orders that went really really poorly, where the person got really, really agitated and combative. And our officers, like this one situation I'm thinking of in particular, really didn't want to have to be hands-on with him. They were trying to avoid it at all costs. They had 3 officers there. And I was there, and they were really trying to not have it go that way, but it did. So unfortunately, they felt like they did have to put handcuffs on him for safety reasons, but most of the time our officers are trying to not put handcuffs on our people. I think something else that helps is that we always have one of our people from our staff members from our program or myself are there to provide support too, and to help try to make it go a little bit more smoothly.
So a co-responder kind of model without a single co-responder. It's whoever's available. And how long have you been doing that?
Since the beginning, really, like 16 years. We always try work for everything involving law enforcement in our program with any of the people we serve. We're always trying to co-respond when it's a situation that's safe and that we're able to do that. We always co-respond just to help. The officers like that too, and they ask for it. They want that because they don't always know what they're doing with this person or what to expect or any of that kind of thing. So we try to provide a lot of information up front before they go to the person's house or wherever the person is, as well as co-responding and trying to be there to help just make that situation go a little bit more smoothly.
Who has mobile crisis available to them? Does Daryl, does mobile crisis, can they be helpful, you think?
Possibly. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what happens when I'm not involved with the mobile crisis team, but they're sent out to on a call, and if the person needs to be brought in for inpatient care, I'm not sure if I know the sheriffs, or maybe they're the ones who actually do the transport in, or it could be our personnel do that. I'm not quite sure, but I can investigate that if necessary. Maybe that would be a collaborate with the sheriff if they're going to do that pickup order to bring them in to get their medication. Maybe they could incorporate or use one of our mobile crisis team members to help make sure that person's calm and don't need those handcuffs. But that's a lot of planning goes involved with that, because sometimes the sheriff will go out and the person's not home. And so they may have to come back the next day or the next day until they find that person. Sometimes they can't be found for a couple of days.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
That's the problem.
I know for our county, sometimes our Riverside Behavioral Health team can help transport some of our clients. And for those that are a little bit higher risk, I think sometimes they tend to do two drivers, or if needed, three. But usually, for the most part, it's, a driver that will transport the client from either their residence to the court hearing, which is typical.
And that's your mobile crisis team that does that transports?
I think behavioral health has a transport team of their own, and then there's mobile crisis, which is a different service.
So I'm curious, what kind of professionals work on the transport team? Are they clinicians? Are they?
No, I don't think I've seen the clinicians. I just know them as transporters. They just help facilitate, whether it's going to doctor's appointments, taking them to groups, or taking them to their hearings, stuff like that. But I don't think they're clinicians.
But they don't respond to court order for emergency evaluation, or do
I don't believe so.
Got it. Got it. And Lorena, so you're saying that your mobile crisis will transport them to treatment if needed, if they meet criteria. Plus having a homeless outreach team. Yeah, the homeless outreach teams are fabulous and very helpful.
Yeah, it might be something worth investigating with our mobile crisis, if instead of the sheriff, maybe in cooperation with the sheriff, doing that transport order, or maybe actually the mobile crisis team maybe could do that, as long as the client's willing to come in. Sometimes it just takes that little extra push to get them in to get their injection, which they're not willing to do. But it's worth a thought. I can always bring up that topic with my supervisor and see what they say.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Sarah, you may want to weigh in on this. I mean, if it's a court order, then I would think that the officers of the court have the duty to carry it out, and so would necessarily be the sheriff or some type of law enforcement.
That would be that is the case in Ohio, and that would be my understanding of everywhere. I think that's a reasonable expectation and understanding.
That being said, I do know a few years back, one of our staff did a ride along in Tucson, Arizona with their AOT program officers. They had officers assigned, and they were very highly trained in engagement strategies, and they didn't dress in, they had their own type of uniform, which was khakis and a polo shirt, but they didn't carry guns. And they didn't use handcuffs, and they didn't use a squad car either. And that seemed to work. But I think that took a lot of collaboration among the community to get to that place. I think that's, having worked at the county jail, it was communication with the sheriff's officer, even being in their house, was difficult at times. And not all were interested in changing their ways. You know, some law enforcement are law enforcement for a reason, even if it's not necessarily what we'd like to think it is.
It seems like more, and I'm assuming it's happening nationwide, but more and more law enforcement offices are identifying people that are doing more community policing type work. So whether it's, whether they're identifying that's work with homeless or however they're identifying it, either way, those people are more equipped to work with our folks. So I think it's really important to know what team that is on your local law enforcement team, like who to go to for those things, because there's certain officers that are always going to be better at that than others. And then like you're talking about, Amy, there's officers that are put the handcuffs on everybody officers, and I don't deal with those people or all the stuff that they say.
And I do have to say that I worked in the jail a long time ago, and there have been many initiatives since then to try and sensitize folks and reduce traumatization. But at that point, CIT was just getting started in the community and hadn't reached the county sheriffs. How many of y'all have CIT?
California mandates it in the post-training now, and there is a new mandate for annual training for CIT for officers in California, which is awesome.
Yes and no. So the thing about CIT is if you have people who volunteer, you're going to get those cops who want to work with the community. But when you force everybody to go through this training and you say, I need a CIT officer and they're all CIT trained, then you're
Well, so we don't have specific CIT officers.
got it.
I know, like, I keep thinking about that team in New Mexico, the CIT team in New Mexico
Oh, yeah.
that was yeah, like they were incredible. A whole team dedicated to just going out and working with folks that needed those kinds of responses. And it was detectives that they chose to be on that team for a very specific reason, which was super cool.
Not only that, but they had a team of detectives and then they had two social workers as
Yeah.
part of that team as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
There are some highlights in community policing. There's bright lights in places.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, I know I'm going out like big picture, but to think about for our communities, like it's also really important as far as like I can think about in our sheriff's department, we don't get a say in who makes what position. We do get to vote for our sheriff though. Um, and it's important to keep those things in mind, right? When we're voting, because we now have a sheriff who, when she was a captain at the jail, she was really big into providing more support for people with mental health issues and doing like she changed the policies on when they release people so that they wouldn't release
At
people with
midnight?
mental illness in the middle of the night. So things like, so when you have people in higher positions in your departments, your law enforcement departments, that have some understanding of what we're doing and who we're working with, it makes it a lot easier.
That makes a really good sense and a reminder to me to do more due diligence when I vote, because I know candidates on the bigger offices on the ticket, but when it comes to judges or sheriff, and those are really important. So we know what we'd like our sheriffs to do and to do better, but what can we do as clinicians to reduce the trauma of um this intervention?
I think as Heather was mentioning that as much as possible, we have one of our people, so if it's one of our members that are being evaluated, to have one of us there as much as possible and just providing some containment there with them and maintaining a relationship. I can't imagine what it would be like there with one of our clients and they're being handcuffed. I'm there in the room, but I would rather have one of us there when that's happening than not, because we can at least be there and provide a relational presence. And it's been, I don't know how it happens when they're released, but as much as possible, whether it's from the jail or from hospitalization, we're involved with picking them up and bringing them back to our county. So just having someone there. And I also wanted to, sorry about backtracking, but Daryl was mentioning communicating with the sheriff's office. We had a great experience recently with someone with a real severe case of anosognosia. And everyone in the county is kind of pulling their hair out about what to do with this person. And we had a great meeting with the local police office. We had a lieutenant there. We had an officer there. Nevada County Behavioral Health was there. We were there. Our mobile crisis team were there. So it was a great meeting to help an individual. But if you think about what that would look like over time, so that was helpful for that one individual. But I felt like this was such a great experience for our our police department and the other agencies, just the communication that happened in that room. Having those kind of meetings over the course of time, over the course of years would, and I have had the great benefit of moving to a county where this has been happening for a decade. So I can feel when I interact with these other agencies, I can feel the work that Heather and the team here has done over the years. So just kind of speaking hope to Daryl's situation, that maybe right now they're still transporting with handcuffs, but those kind of collaborative efforts have made a huge difference over the course of time. So it just feels like there's hope for your situation there. Yeah. So back to your current question. Yeah, just having one of us there to provide containment and say, you know, this is for safety. You're not under arrest. This, you know, we're just trying to keep everyone safe here and just providing some warm thoughts and containment.
Okay, so now I want to go back, Danny.
I started with that precedent.
Because I think that is a really good point. Having, so we recommend that there be at least quarterly stakeholder meetings for all AOT programs where all the collaborators come together, including, you know, the mental health system, the provider, the law enforcement, the courts. And I think in those meetings, you're able to do a lot more. You're able to make more progress because everybody's bought in to what we're trying to do. And so, you know, when you make a suggestion to the law enforcement representative, or not even make a suggestion to them, bring up a topic and say, you know, this is traumatic. How can we do this differently so it's not as traumatizing for the person? And then perhaps the law enforcement could speak up and say, you know what, we could maybe we could do this differently. So in other words, the more we can get folks to make them think that it's their idea, I think the better it's going to work, the more buy-in you're going to get. That's not simple, and it takes time. But I think Daryl, you mentioned you met with your judge, and he wants to do what he can, and I know he's brought, and you know, the sheriffs are the officers of his court, so I mean he kind of holds a little bit of sway there.
Yeah, I suppose his order could state that they could be transported without handcuffs, but I don't want. What would I say? I don't want. I don't think he can reach out to that far of a reach. What if something were to go wrong and then the client becomes violent and
what I'm suggesting is that engaging in the conversation.
Yeah.
Like I mean he called a meeting with who was it? Attorneys and sheriffs to talk about the court orders. Who was that?
Yeah, that was Judge Fish, but I wasn't involved. But we have quarterly meetings with our AOT, the judge, the participant, well, Porter Stark staff, but we haven't invited the law enforcement aspect of it because they're a part of it, because a lot of the clients in the AOT will eventually, they're the ones I deal with at the state hospital a lot of times. They have to be on that commitment, and when on the commitment, they're usually involved with the AOT program eventually sometime. So maybe we should invite someone from the law enforcement to be part of that quarterly meeting to bring up these topics.
Oh, I think that is really important, and I strongly suggest that. And again, maybe having Judge Fish invite them might go a little further than having Daryl call and say,
yeah, Daryl who?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My part of the transport or pickup orders is limited to apprehends and returns, that's what we call them, when they are not compliant with their forced medication order, usually is a monthly injection, or the transport to the state hospital. And then our inpatient unit and the hospital system work in conjunction with they transport from our local hospital to our inpatient unit, which I'm not involved with those orders at all. So, but if we can start the conversation on my side, maybe it can bleed over into that other side. And we're going to have a meeting about that tomorrow with our inpatient staff. Maybe I'll bring that topic up and see if they have any sway or what they can do as well.
That's an excellent idea.
Because we're going to have a meeting with our inpatient unit about other things about state hospital transport and when the clients are told about when they're going to the state hospital, which is a whole nother topic. I will bring that up. That's another bee in my bonnet, which I don't like, but try to get that changed as well. So.
Does anybody do any post-event trauma assessment or talk about what happened after someone's released? Heather, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, we do try to address it with the person, recognizing that they just went through a series of traumatic events, I'm sure, not just that one moment of getting into the police car, but yeah, we do work to make sure that we're addressing that with people and that they can feel comfortable and safe talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. A great idea. I'm just curious, Jared, you working in the hospital, did you ever have any conversations about how people got there and any trauma they experienced on the way or while they were hospitalized for that matter?
I mean, I sympathize with a lot of this conversation because a lot of people came to the hospital in handcuffs and, would have bruises on their wrists from the handcuffs, would be transported by police, and they really experienced very similar experience from what you all described. I wasn't in a place to make any decisions on that policy or how that was done, but it seems like there were a lot of possibilities, options for the way things could be done, transported not in a police car or somebody in plain clothes, or if possible without cuffs like we've discussed. But definitely a lot of the same experience of people not feeling cared for when they're brought to the hospital. And then that just makes, when you tell somebody this isn't a prison, this is a hospital, it really is it's not a very believable statement. It feels like a prison. It looks like a prison. You brought me here in cuffs, and a hospital is a place where people are meant to get better. And that doesn't really start the caring relationship on the right foot. And so there's a lot of work to build trust after that. And it's really difficult. Our region is doing more CIT training. And there's a new co-responder model that is sort of getting, I don't know if it's beta tested, it's new. It's new in the area. So maybe some of those values will trickle down into how transports are made to the hospital. But also we had people who were being diverted from other regions hours away from our hospital. And those transports are often done the same way. So that's just a transport from one hospital to another. So you can see how that is just sort of the base level expectation around all of these types of transports, and that we should raise the bar and what to expect when doing this work for sure.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Can I jump in, Amy?
Yes, please do.
I just was thinking kind of as the group was talking, mainly earlier in the conversation when Daryl, you were saying that while it's up to the deputy to decide for the whether or not to use handcuffs, they tend to defer to use them, and that's kind of normalized practice. And then what Heather Vance was saying, which was, I think that they don't use handcuffs very often. And I was just thinking about how these practices get kind of normalized in certain places, and then they're hard to change, especially when it's someone telling someone else what to do and they're not in that same role. And so I wondered if, like, in a very diplomatic way, if you're afraid of being poorly received when you make the suggestion to the deputy or to whoever, if maybe mentioning, oh, this police department has had luck with this strategy, and you could talk to one of their deputies about what they do. It may be something that it's a way to make the ask a little more indirect and coming from a fellow officer or professional that they respect might be a good strategy.
Yeah, I'd be interested to talk to some of these deputies. I don't know if they have a group of deputies that always do the transport. I don't know how they're assigned, but unfortunately, Indiana, we're in Northwest Indiana. All the state hospitals are either 2.5 to 5 hours away. Nothing's in Northern Indiana. I don't know why, not a single hospital, state hospital. And especially a 5 to 6 hour drive, they have to stop for some breaks. And they're in handcuffs. How do they deal with that? Do they walk them into handcuffs into the restaurant, into the rest stop? I don't know. I'd be interested to have a conversation, and that would be even more traumatizing. Walking them in handcuffs into the public environment now. They have to.
Yeah. And obviously, the person who's experiencing that is experiencing, I would say, maybe multiple levels of stigma, because now they're afraid what others who are seeing them are thinking, potentially.
Right.
One place, Brooke, that this would show up in the hospital was people who were not guilty by reason of insanity going to their hearings, annual hearings, that sort of thing. This could be somebody who had a privilege level where they could go out on passes into the community. Like, we're trusting this person to go out into the community, but when they're going to their hearing, they're transported in cuffs. Like, it sends such a different message to this person about how we trust you and where you are in your recovery. Like, that anytime someone's being transported or is somehow like in the custody of the state in those moments, that it's done with handcuffs, as opposed to just like treating somebody like they're capable and ready to handle the situation.
There's also no cohesion in that. I feel like it would insinuate that the view of the person by the hospital is different than the view of the person by whoever's transporting them. And I feel like it's not very collaborative. It kind of sends conflicting messages.
Definitely.
Any more thoughts for the good of the order?
Well, it's definitely going to open up a conversation now between us and the local sheriff's department. We need to get that communication going more. Instead of them being over there and we're over here, we need to have a common ground in the middle, which we don't at the moment. So
be prepared for a slow process. A slow process. Because
maybe bring them donuts.
Oh,
I don't know.
always. I'm a that's the worst thing about this virtual workspaces. I can't
No bribery.
I can't bring y'all cookies to get you to talk. That's a lot harder.
I will add for Daryl onto what Amy said, 100%, you have to let them believe it's their idea. So having that conversation all together, you're like, gosh, we have this issue, and then let them solve that problem. And then they come up with something that you want them to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, especially when they have no concept.
Right.
They would never think in these terms that maybe this is traumatic. I mean, it's
Right.
automatic, it's what they do.
Yeah.
So, well, everyone, thank you so much for participating. Um, have a great summer, and I hope to see you around here and there, perhaps at a webinar or something. Our next webinar is about stigma. So, again, I encourage you to, if you're not able to join at that time, check out the video. And it's got some very interesting speakers. Shanti, Jared, and Brooke are presenting. So it's bound to be a good one. So thanks, y'all, and have a great summer.